All right, so please, without further ado, please put your hands together for our next and final speaker of this morning, although we have some great talks after lunch. Give it up for software engineer from GeekyAnts who does front end and React Native. Everyone put your hands together for Tarun. Woohoo!
So, hi, hello everyone. There's nice weather out there, and the venue is absolutely beautiful. First of all, can we have a huge round of applause for the organizing team? All right. Well, so hi, I'm Tarun. I'm a senior software engineer here at GeekyAnts, and I mostly work around and mess around with React Native, web, and everything JavaScript, TypeScript. Yep. So initially, I was going to get a raise of hands of who has heard about server-driven UI. But right now, I don't think so. I will need to ask that question, because since it's a hot topic, I'm pretty sure that everyone knows it. But yeah, there's still intricacies, and I'm here to talk about it. Before I jump into my topic, I will have you to take you back to the time, right? We are pretty sure what is this. This is by far the most excellent invention that has happened to the humankind, right? But if you see, an invention happened years ago, is still being used till this day. It's in the mechanical watches, it's everywhere, right? The wheel was fundamentally the most absolutely crazy invention. They might have not foreseen what was being out there, right? So why am I taking you back this to the era, right? So you'll find out. Also, I don't need to explain why and how we are still using this machine in some or the other way, right? I'm pretty sure someone is absolutely using this machine right now, right? So I want to talk about the fundamentals that we are still using the same fundamentals that has happened years and years ago till this date, right? So how that applies to the development, to the app development, the web, and the mobile part. So if we see, years ago, we started off with the rectangular displays, and we started developing for the rectangular displays, right? We came and evolved around developing for usability, for personalization, right? But the fundamentals still remain the same, right? We're developing for showing information in a rectangular screens, be it larger screens, and now we have smaller screens. And fundamentally, it's all the same. We have to show the information, right? And if we see how are we showing the information in the screens, again, it seems different and modern right now, but it's still the same. So why not make use of these fundamentals, capitalize on that, and keep it sturdy, and also bring the modern tech around it, right? So we saw the similar layouts in the past, and we're still using them right now. So for example, if we take example of a gallery UI, right? There might be 100 ways to do a gallery UI, but most prominently, since the users are used to a couple of them, we are still sticking to maybe 3, 4, 5 at max, depends on the UI, right? So that's what I call peak correctness. We have achieved something called as peak correctness in various different things, right? We can get a callback for the wheel. Wheel has been used till now with the same exact fundamental that a round circular thing is spinning, and we are making use of that spinning, right? That's what I call as peak correctness. So yeah, we will capitalize on the fundamentals, and over the next few minutes, I will go through what, how, and everything between the server-driven UI. Can you use it in your business? That's what we're going to answer. And obviously, the right balance. Yep. So talking about what? So server-driven UI is, as the name suggests, as a backend, we will handle whatever we are going to ship it to the front end, right? So at its core, it's just a JSON, what drives the UI. Here, I've taken an example of a tile with prefix icon and suffix icons. And if you notice, there's an interesting thing that's an action, right? We'll come to that in a bit. So this is, at its core, what server-driven UI is. We take the JSON, we structure it to a way, and then we get the components. What if we use multiple JSONs, right? We'll get, obviously, US. We can wrap around it, we can play around the JSON, and it will give out the UI we want. Right. But how does this happen? It happens, we have, under the hood, it lies 3 main components. One is the UI generator. The second one is the component factory, the set of components your business or your apps, I'm saying the word apps because it can drive multiple apps. And the last one is the integral part, that's the JSON contract. So if we have a look at under the hood, the first component, the major component that we use is the UI generator. So it's just a function that takes the component name, the component factory, which we're going to talk about soon, and then the props. And using those props, we'll just modify what the function does, right? So component factory is pretty much a map, right? Nothing new to explain here. I was going to mention about the actions. This is one of the reasons why the server-driven UI was so popular back then, and it's still popular now. So if we take a look at the actions, we have a navigate action with a URL. So if we see, URL can either be used to navigate inside our app, if it is defined, or else we can structure our JSON in such a way that either we can do an external API call. If we just add get, we are basically telling that it should fetch the next API, right? And using the power of this, we can also just similarly use post, but we just need to add body, whatever. Again, this is also from the backend. So the hassle to pass the body from the front end will be minimized. On top of that, we can also automate what and how a UI will be looking in not just a single page of component, but also, for example, here I've used an action sheet. So here, with just this piece of JSON, we can open an action sheet, pass the URL to get the response, what we will be showing inside the action sheet. So just by, I don't know, 14 lines of JSON, we have created a page which gets the response, opens up an action sheet on tap of a tile, and also passes a URL that we are going to open it inside the action sheet, which will have a loaders, and then in the action sheet, we'll get all the data, right? So this is the most fascinating thing about server-driven UI. Now let me talk about, so we saw the basic thing, why we were using server-driven UI. So here's an example of, so the Swiggy is a food delivery app in India. It's a market leader, and they are using server-driven UI to render a card, which is, they like to call it as dynamic widget. So if you attach this to having a personalized data, right? Swiggy has been operating since years. They have data which drives the analytics and also drives what should be shown to what users. So a personalized experience has been given here, where you'll be shown nearby locations You'll be shown the pictures that's generated to cater to your data, I would have to say. Not only that, let's say there's a hot trending topic right now, right? There's a new TV show. You want to capitalize on that, grab that marketing opportunity, and show it in your app. If you see, the widget size is different. That affects both the page size, the layouts, and obviously the data. So here, this is all driven by server-driven UI. If you see the layout, they have defined, it's just a change of JSON under the hood, right? And just using the power of that, we have created a personalized UI for the user itself that's driving the best marketing content, the best businesses, right? So just a quick recap. Here's what we just saw. What's the power of server-driven UI? And obviously, needless to say, the OT updates will be great. And since the JSON is very, very readable, it also be predictable. Also, development cost might be less. That depends on many factors. But one of the main things will be the cross-platform. The dream of cross-platform has been there since, I don't know, the beginning of time. Server-driven UI, also React Server Components, I'm not getting there, will make this happen, definitely. And if you have to talk about how it helps inherently changing a day-to-day coding experience, so it helps us having a centralized logic because we're just using predictable JSONs and mostly driving on the server itself. Second one is, again, easier cross-platform. For development, again, since the same team might be developing for both web and mobile, it will be an absolute pleasure. Improved performance. This, I would have to say, it's a double-edged sword. If done correctly, it can really, really improve the performance, right? And obviously, a good version control. So here's another example of what the power of server-driven UI can do. Let's say we are taking the same example as the gallery we had earlier. For example, let's say the marketing team said, why not change it to a bento grid? We can do it with just a click of a button. And how about we change it to a carousel, right? If you notice, changing from bento grid to normal grid was just the styles thing, right? But if you have to change from bento grid or any type of grid to something like carousel, it also involves attaching the data to the images, right? For example, which one should be first, which one should be showed at the top, how many images should be there. So all of this data can be attached in the JSON, and all of this can be done in a predictable way. All of these were really great things about server-driven UI, right? But what's the catch? So the catch is, what if we overuse it, right? What's the exact cost of overusing it? That being said, where do we exactly draw the line? So we just talked about what server-driven UI is, how we do it, but there's also one component that is how much of server-driven UI we should be using. So there are flavors of server-driven UI. If you see from a perspective, every app is still a server-driven UI, since the data is from the backend. We are writing a logic. We are writing the booleans. But yeah, I would like to categorize those as basic ones. We already have solutions for CMSs, banners we saw just right now. There's tools for dynamically generating the forms, right? Based on inputs, based on many, many permutational factors. But what if we go absolute extreme? Everything using server-driven UI. What's the cost of it? How will it be done? And what are we looking at, right? So this is kind of a basic diagram, architectural diagram that we were kind of implementing. Here, we divided our business logics into separate apps and used the server-driven UI right from starting and choosing a UI library and delivering multiple apps. Not just a single app, but multiple apps, right? So if I just go through it, from the very left, we can see a UI library. That's GlowStack UI, or you can use anything. Obviously, you will be developing your own complex components on top of that. Then there will be a JSON layer, which will come back. We already saw the UI generator. And since we were kind of developing feature first, we have different set of features clubbed together. And using multiple set of features, we can create an app. For example, let's say we are shipping chatbots. For example, we have feature flags for should we enable AI or anything for that matter. We can use the feature flags in a very, very seamless way, since all of this data is coming from the backend, and ship out multiple different apps using a set of features we have, right? As I said, I'll be coming back to the JSON layer. That's the most fragile layer right now, and hooking up to an app builder. So similar to something like CMS, where we configure our JSON, drive our JSON, and then predict it. So again, coming back to the same line, it's very, very important for a business to predefine at what point we have to draw a line and how much of server-driven UI we have to use. Reason being, if we go extreme, there are many, many catches. And what I like to call is the ROI curve. So here, if you started initially adopting server-driven UI, the return on investment will be really, really good. But as we use more and more server-driven UI and club it together and kind of a merge request, the merge conflict in the server-driven UI, the return on investment will start to flatten out. So if we see, there's might be a good point where you want to create a line where to stop it. Like, this is how much of server-driven UI is what my app would need, my features would need, and how much of changes my app would want, right? So obviously, we have to consider the ROI curve. It might be similar to this. Find your point, find your drawing the line, and then make this decision before adopting server-driven UI. So that gets me to a question, I guess the most important question of this talk right now. Is server-driven UI, is server-driven app a good approach for you, right? So to answer this, we already covered first, get the clarity of how much you'll be using it, right? The reason being the hurdles it comes up with. So let's talk about the hurdles where we start adopting more and more of server-driven UI, right? Let's talk about some hurdles. So first is obviously when we will have to make the decisions pre-hand, we will have to invest more and more time on discussing many things. So initial time to market will take a hit. You remember I said if done correctly, the performance will be good. But it's a fragile link. The performance can take a hit because the communication between the front-end and back-end and the API calls are quite frequent. So performance, if not done correctly, will definitely take a hit. Next being the hassle of state management, but in the front end. Specifically in the front end, if there are too many things going on, too many interactions, and many dependent interactions, server-driven UI might not be for you, and it can get really bad really quickly. That comes to the next point, that is the contract management. So the contract, similar to having to version your code, and also you have to version your contracts as well. So let's say you have different branches, maybe dev, maybe staging, and obviously the production. You'll have to maintain the states for each one of them. The reason being, let's say we shipped JSON in the production, which is not yet completely supported in the front end. It definitely will break the front end in a very unpredictable manner, right? So we already discussed more decisions to make beforehand. And coming to the next point, that is, trust me, the developer experience. If the developer experience will also be very, very fragile. If done badly, will definitely take a hit on the developer experience. Yeah, there are many ways to overcome this. The solutions will be to have a great communication, to have a better version management system, and overall to have better communication in the whole architecture and more clarity, right? Final one being the major hurdles we faced were animation, page transitions, and in general communicating with other pages or other features, maybe communicating with other different moving parts. So even this has to be figured out and decided beforehand. Coming to next, I said that the JSON layer is very fragile. And this is where I believe most of the business decisions will have to put more and more time and effort into. The reason being, a JSON structure is kind of opinionated. We saw there are many ways to define your JSON structure, and how are you going to structure it? How are you going to pass the props? How are you going to override your functions? If the function is overridden, what consequences and what will be the fallbacks, right? So JSON layers is where it gets really tricky, and hence it's really, really fragile. Just a quick sneak peek. We are kind of solving, and basically we're creating an opinionated JSON structure for this one. So do watch out for that. This is the only thing I'm allowed to say right now. So concluding what we just discussed, if answering the question, is server-driven UI for you? Just summarizing it, one, if it is content heavy, if it is dynamic offerings, as we just saw, and if the change is very fast-paced, and if your app is highly personalized, then definitely I would recommend going for it. Not so much if it is having an offline support and very strict offline requirements, since we are very much communicating with the server, and that's the integral part. Having an offline support and heavy offline requirements will definitely might not be your way. Second one would be, as we discussed, highly interactive. If there are many front-end moving parts, if there are many actions, and if, let's say, we have many real-time applications where the feedback loop is very high, and feedback loops should be as nominal as possible. So that's where server-driven UI might not be for you, right? And obviously, since this is an architectural decision, since this is mostly for the masses, if it's a small-scale app, I would prefer not having to have a server-driven UI, right? More or less, it's really great, and I have few recommendations to have a look at. These are two really great videos. One is by Ayush Singh. He combines the tokenizing in the Figma layer. He uses CodeGen in server-driven UI. And second one, the man himself, Mo. Hi, Mo. Yeah. So you should definitely watch this talk where he kind of lied about a bit. Sorry, I blew that. Yeah, this is worth watching, worth every single minute, where he mentions the core and integral part of server-driven UI with RSCs. And with that, I'll thank you, every one of it. Cheers. Here's my Twitter. I still like to call it as Twitter. We can connect and have a great evening ahead. Cheers. Yeah.